And welcome to today's lesson, which is all about the von Thunen model in AP Human Geography, Unit 5. So, what we need to know about this model is that it was created by Johann Heinrich von Thunen in 1826, and we have to remember that it was created in the 1800s, which means that it accounts for a lot different circumstances than the ones that we have today. It also assumes that the city is isolated and self-sufficient, so this means that there's no interaction with any other cities and that it can produce all the resources that it could possibly need. So you won't find any other interactions with any other cities next to it. All by itself, it's isolated. Now, of course, we have to understand that we won't really find any cities that follow this model to the point today because the world is interconnected due to globalization. And so because of that, there are adaptations and variations of this model that can be applied, but this model, as it is right now, cannot. So in the von Thunen model, we have there's many variations, but the one we're gonna be looking at today, it has 4 rings. So this black dot in the center is going to be the city center, and so this is where everyone lives. This is where the market is. So this is where everyone sells their crops, goods, livestock, whatever it is. They do it in the city center. Now, outside of the city center, you're going to have your first concentric ring. That's going to include intensive and dairy farming. So this is going to be where your fruits, vegetables, and flowers are going to be grown. And your dairy farming is going to occur here too. And the reason for that is because fruits, vegetables, flowers, dairy, they all spoil really quickly. Remember, this is the 1800s, so that there's no refrigeration. So once you harvest, you got to get them sold pretty quickly. So you have to be really close to the city center, because if your crops spoil, then you're out of all that money that you put into growing them, and that's not good for you. And so that's why your intensive and dairy farming will be closest to the city center. Now, the next ring is going to be forestry. Now, in the 1800s, wood was an important source of fuel because people burned it to stay warm, to cook, to do all these other things. And wood is large and heavy, which means that it is difficult and expensive to transport far distances. So this is why that you'll find your timber and wood, your forests, right next to the city center. Not as close as the fruits, vegetables, dairy, and flowers, because wood doesn't spoil. So you can afford to take a bit longer in transporting that wood from this region to the city center. Next, you'll have your ring of extensive farming. So this is where your grains are going to be grown, and farmers here, what they're going to do is they're going to practice crop rotation, which, if you don't know already, crop rotation is when you grow one crop a year, and then the next year you're going to switch it out for a different crop. So for example, a farmer might grow wheat one year, then barley the next, then switch back to wheat the year after that. And extensive farming requires a lot of land, and the further you get out from the city center, the cheaper land is going to get. So they found that balance out here in the third ring, where you'll find a good amount of land for not too expensive, and they'll practice all the extensive farming here. And grains, they have a pretty long shelf life, and they're not that heavy either. So you can afford to transport grains from all the way out here to the city center. Now, the last ring that we're going to be talking about today is the ring where you'll have your ranching taking place. Now, ranching, you're going to have cattle, livestock, and a lot of other things that take a lot of land. And land is very expensive in the center, but not so much all the way out here. So you're going to be able to have all that land for ranching that ranching requires, because you need a lot of land for ranching. And you're going to be able to have all that land and it's not going to be too expensive either. And there's no transportation cost because you can walk your cattle or livestock to the city center where they can be sold or butchered or whatever the case may be. Now, when talking about the von Thunen model, there are limitations, and that is that the model needs the land to be flat. This means that there shouldn't be any rivers or mountains because, well, you can't practice like ranching on a river, can you? No. So if there are rivers or mountains, they'll skew up the rings and they'll distort them. There are variations of the von Thunen model that account for rivers and or rivers and mountains. Sorry. But this specific one that we just talked about, there shouldn't be any rivers, no mountains. Land has to be flat, and it also needs only a single market, and that single market is going to be in the city center. Now, if there are other markets, then the rings will get skewed up because, well, now you can practice your horticulture, intensive farming and dairy farming like close to that city center in addition, or close to that market in addition to the one next to the city center, because you can sell it to both markets. So in the von Thunen model, there's only a single market. And that pretty much covers up the von Thunen model. Thanks for listening and have a great day.